greetings. Thank you for taking a few minutes to answer some questions with Below the Scene readers from around the world today. We really appreciate your time.
My pleasure, brother.
Awesome, man. So go ahead.
From mother.
Awesome, man. So go ahead and for our readers that may not be familiar, go ahead and introduce yourself and your weapon of choice with North Carolina's metallic punk mainstays, Corrosion of Conformity.
Yeah, my name's Reed Mullin, and we started the band back in 1982, I think. We were kind of like pretty straight up American hardcore of the era, you know. DC was close by, so we got to see Minor Threat all the time, and tons of bands started cruising through. I came up with the name in chemistry class.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Awesome.
But yeah, man, I mean, it was so DIY back then. Everybody knew each other, you know. We did what everybody else did and got in the van and just split. We did our first album ourselves, Eye for an Eye.
Righteous.
And yeah, toured around the United States and Canada, rather. And got to make friends with a lot of people in different bands. I was also the promoter in Raleigh.
Oh, right on.
My dad had a copy machine.
Oh, no shit.
so I did, like, you know, Black Flag and Battalion of Saints, Suicidal and DOA and
That's awesome.
Dead Kennedys, all that kind of shit. So we became friends with all those people. So when we'd go around,
nice.
You know what I mean?
That's awesome. So is that how you kind of got your feet wet, like in like the whole music world?
I mean, it helped, definitely, being the promoter, because I'd give the bands all the money. I would just, you know, rent out the place. I mean, it wasn't like I ever made anything, because punk rock was my religion, man.
Right.
You know what I mean?
The punk rock ethics of the core.
Yeah. Well, I used to get boxes of Minor Threat singles from Ian before their album came out. It's the first 2 7-inches, and try and convert people in my high school.
That's awesome.
I think I charged them $250 per single, money back guarantee. Think how much those fuckers are worth now, dude.
Yeah, right?
Outstep or whatever it is. Outstep with the world. Anyway.
Awesome, man. Very cool.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, it was a lot different. It was a lot smaller than it is these days, and we certainly didn't make that much money. The only bands that were making any money were like Dead Kennedys or,
right.
You know what I mean?
Awesome. All right, so Corrosion of Conformity has been out on the road with Torch, Black Cobra, Gaza, Valiant Thor, and now Municipal Waste, and more before 2012 draws to a close. And that's a very eclectic mix of bands. It has to feel good to be appreciated by so many different bands and so many, you know, niche fans, you know, this deep into the game. Do you guys actually play an active role in the selection of your tour mates? And is it your intention to play with an eclectic mix of bands when you're on the road?
We've always tried to do an eclectic mix. Like we brought some buddies of ours from, this was like 86 or 87 when we were doing Technocracy tour. And we brought our buddies out called Honor Roll from Richmond. They're not around anymore, but I mean, they sounded, I'm trying to think of a band they even sounded like. I can't, but they certainly weren't like the crossover stuff that we were known for and the crowds were showing up for. It was much more, God, if they had just come out like 10 years later, they would have been huge, but they didn't. But yeah, no, I mean, we do, of course, as much as we can, you know.
Right.
I think this was Municipal Waste asking us, actually, but yeah, we'd like to mix things up. I mean, I don't want to hear necessarily 4 or 5 bands that all sound exactly the same. Do you?
Right, absolutely.
I mean, they might all be great, but
yeah,
it's cool to mix things up, like you said.
Totally.
Like Gaza sound completely different from us, and Black Cobra sound completely different than Torch, and that was a cool tour. Man, that was one of the best tours I think we've ever done.
Awesome.
Everybody was really cool. Righteous,
man, righteous. So, with such an eclectic mix of tour mates, you guys have a pretty unique vantage point on the current metal scene across the states. As one of the most definitive bands to bridge punk and metal, I'm kind of interested to know how would you say the current metal and punk scene of 2012 compares to like when you first started, like in the 80s?
Well, it's difficult for me to ascertain. It seems like things are segregated a lot more than they were back then.
Okay.
I mean, I remember being in LA for whatever reason and seeing the Minutemen, DOA, Black Flag, and Husker Du, and all those bands are completely different. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I don't know. I think with the internet just playing such a massive role. I mean, think of how many kinds of metal there are these days.
Right.
You know?
Oh, there's tons of subgenres and niches and all that stuff. Yeah.
Kind of drives me a little crazy, but because I just like music that I think is good. You know
right.
what I mean? I mean, it seems like the DIY house party thing is thriving. Those Gaza guys do a lot of that shit.
Totally.
We're into that. We did that one of those in Raleigh about 6 months ago. It was fun as fuck.
Awesome.
But I mean, everything seems pretty healthy. I think there's going to be it seems like there's kind of a glut of a lot of bands now.
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
Everything will work itself out. It always does.
I got you. Cool.
I mean, as I said, the tour we just finished with yesterday, the day before. I think all those bands, I mean, they're all heavy rock bands, but it was a good example of stuff we like, you know what I mean?
Awesome. Very cool. So you recently dropped a new self-titled full-length on Candlelight Records, which is awesome. How did you guys come to link up with Candlelight?
Actually, they came to us.
Cool.
They had heard that we had recorded. We actually recorded the album before we started shopping it around.
Okay.
I'm old friends with Dave Grohl. He used to, like, when he was in his first band was called Dame Bramage.
Okay.
Where he was in that punk band Scream.
Okay.
And Nirvana, obviously.
Right.
And so we were one of his favorite bands, so he'd come check us out. And I had a little indie label that put out that band On Roll I was telling you about, and Subculture, and some other punk bands and stuff. And I put Dame Bramage's album out.
Oh, okay.
I was forever grateful, and it's always been really cool, even though he's a fucking, 100 millionaire, super filthy rich guy. You never know it. Anyway,
Yeah.
what happened was I saw he was doing this side project with John Paul Jones and Josh Homme.
Okay.
And they played on Saturday Night Live. And at the end of the Saturday Night Live thing, they did some skit. It was Fred Armistead and Dave Grohl. It was a hardcore punk rock wedding band, but they were called Crisis of Conformity.
Right.
Have you heard of that? So they did it, and Fred Armistead staged over into the wedding cake, and it was pretty funny.
That's awesome.
Anyway, I found out they were playing in Atlanta like the next day.
Okay.
So I flew down. I didn't fly. I drove down as fast as I could to check it out. Got there a little late, and finagled my way in backstage. And I'm sitting behind Dave. He was just killing it.
Right.
Place is packed. Some theater, I think it was the Fox in Atlanta. And he sees me midway through the set, turns around, like, "Argh!" Big googly eyes, you know what I mean?
Right.
Jumps off the drum stool, gives me a big sweaty hug.
Awesome.
What the fuck are you doing here? Why didn't you call me before? I don't have your number. Oh yeah.
Right
Hold
on.
on, he says. And he runs over to the side of the stage and he grabs John Paul Jones
No shit.
and brings John Paul Jones back there. This is in the middle of the set, by the way. Josh Homme's like, where the fuck is John? And so Dave brings John Paul Jones to me and says, John, this guy I was telling you about, this is Reed.
Right.
This is that guy I was telling you the reason I started playing drums or whatever he said.
Right.
And John Paul Jones goes, whoa, mate, you must be pretty good. I was like, at that point my head just crushed.
Right.
I was like, dude, you got a concert, go on, finish it. Anyway, it was my birthday. I got John Paul Jones, after the show I got John Paul Jones to call Mike Dean at home, leave a message. And Dave was like, it was awesome. He said he had heard that me, Woody, and Mike had got back together to do the old school kind of stuff.
Right.
And he was like, man, I got this badass studio in LA, in Northridge, and you guys gotta come out. I'll totally hook you up.
Nice.
Family deal.
Awesome.
Right?
That's a way to
So
do
I didn't
it.
think he was serious until, like, I thought he was just being nice or whatever.
Right.
Anyway, he calls me like a week later, or 2 weeks later, and says, dude, you haven't called Scott, the studio manager. What's going on? I thought you were going to book some time. And at that point, I was like, oh, sorry, yeah, I'll do it right now. And we booked the time. We went out. We did about 20 COC songs and about 20 Righteous Fool songs.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's
So
totally
that's
right.
how the Candlelight thing worked out. So we had amassed quite a bit of material, both bands, and just went out and did it.
Awesome, man.
Dave hooked us up, man. He's
There you go.
cool dude, yeah.
That's righteous, man. Very cool. Righteous. All right, now with such a with such a rich history of releases, do you guys try and approach each record with a fresh start? And do you challenge yourself with new recording techniques and different approaches? Because now history reflects on you guys as one of the definitive crossover bands of metal and punk. Does that put pressure on the writing process?
No, I don't think so. I mean, we do now what we've always done is just write music that we like.
Right.
I think this last album we included probably a lot more up-tempo stuff, and
Sure.
I think this album probably defines the history of the band a little bit more with its material. I mean, the stuff just oozed out of us, but
Right.
I think it's more representative of, say, like Deliverance, where there was no really, deep beat kind of stuff or hardcore beats, or you know what I mean?
Right, right.
Kind of tempos. I don't think it was conscious. It was just kind of, those are the songs that we were fucking around with that we liked.
Right on.
But I like all the eras of COC, the old hardcore stuff, the crossover stuff or whatever, and the album Blind. That was the first one our producer that we've used since '91 did for us. And I think your buddy Mike, do you know Mike Gitter at all?
I don't believe so.
Oh, okay. He's oh, never mind. Anyway,
right on.
so yeah, we've been using this guy named John Custer, who's from Raleigh as well, to help us produce all our albums since '91. So he did Blind, he did Deliverance and Wise Blood, America's Volume Dealer, and Arms of God. I didn't play on that one, and the new one. And so Mike knows a lot more about recording than Woody or I, but John he's like the extra member.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right on.
Yeah. But I think we've been fortunate because we've kind of reinvented ourselves a bunch of times. I mean, when we finished touring on Technocracy, which was our last thing for Metal Blade, Simon Bob, I forget if we kicked him out or invited him to leave or he left. I don't know.
Right.
But he left.
Okay.
And so then we had to find a new singer, and that took a long time.
Right.
We ended up trying out that guy Pepper, who was singing us for a while. We tried him out for singing, and he was terrible, but he knew how to play guitar.
Right
so
on.
We kept him as a second guitar player.
Awesome.
And we finally found Carl, and we did the Blind album with Carl.
Cool.
And that was much more of a metallic album with, weird time signatures, and
right.
it was much more drum oriented.
Yeah.
Look at me, kind of drum stuff.
Yeah.
Look what
Which
I
is
can
cool.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was
Do
fun
it.
for me. But, and I did the whole album. I did the entire album by myself because I was really nervous. And I kept accusing the guitar players of fucking me up, like slowing tempos down and shit.
Right.
So I basically did a 60-minute drum solo.
There you go.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool.
But that's more of a metallic kind of thing. We still had the political overtones with the lyrics and shit like that.
Sure.
We had a song called "Vote with a Bullet" on that album too.
Right.
Which could have gotten us in a lot of trouble because we kind of went overboard with it. Like we were passing out flyers that had all these gun sights on these super conservative members of Congress. Think if we did that shit now,
yeah,
Guantanamo or something.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Fuck.
The climate has definitely changed.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Vote with a Bullet. It was about Jesse Helms, who was a really at the time he was one of the most conservative members of Congress, but now he just seems like an average Tea Party guy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Anyway, we worked on I worked on the campaign. Some of my buddies did. For the black guy that tried to unseat Jesse Helms.
Okay.
And Jesse just pulled out all stops, dude. Like the Democratic headquarters, all their power and phones were cut the day of the election.
Oh no shit.
Yeah.
I never heard this.
Real areas of town in Raleigh and Durham. The voting booths. The guy that was running against Jesse Helms, Harvey Gantt. Harvey Gantt was the guy. The button wouldn't work.
Wow.
All sorts of dirty tricks.
That sounds like Bush tricks.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and in company towns, like where there's one big company and everybody works there,
Right.
they wouldn't let like black people go vote. They'd have to stay and work till
Right.
just
Yeah.
nasty
It's
shit.
ridiculous.
So anyway, we wrote that song for Jesse called "Vote with a Bullet."
Yeah. And it's still true to what's going on today. I
No
mean, you could
shit.
apply that to the
probably
current
worse
political
now.
climate. Yeah. Absolutely.